What's up, everyone? This is Ryan Cramer with PingPong Payments. I'm the affiliate marketing manager here. You've joined us on Crossover Commerce. So thanks again. We just got done with a webinar right before this. So if you're live on LinkedIn, go ahead and stay tuned because this is also a great conversation. Thanks for joining us today. With me is the wonderful Melissa Simonson of Empowery. Melissa, welcome.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, sorry about the technical difficulty. It's like matching up schedules. It's so fun in us in different time zones and whatnot. I'm on the East Coast. You're in Idaho, correct?
That's correct. Yeah, we're on
Awesome.
Mountain Time here, which I don't think really exists.
It doesn't. It's like the if you have like four children, it's like the last one they remember. It's always Pacific or East Coast or Central. And then the Mountain Time's last. So for those of you international, it's fun to always play catch up with people on different time zones. But thanks for joining us today. We're super excited to talk. I was able to talk myself with Melissa last week on Empowery, is their co-op, e-commerce co-op that you run as GM, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Awesome. That's a cool title to have. I love General Manager of running everything. So, but yeah, we can dive into that. But yeah, why don't, for people who don't know what Empowery is, or just a little bit about yourself, if you can kind of give a little bit about your background, how you got to where you are today, and kind of that context of why you're an expert in what you do.
Yeah, so for those who don't know me, I'm Melissa Simonson. I entered the e-commerce sphere through Empowery it was about the end of 2017, and then we launched Empowery in 2018. And at that time, it was just kind of an idea, but I had to learn real fast because this is sort of a thing where we are flying the plane as we build it. So we're kind of putting things together that are necessary items for sellers and things that are necessary for partners. And we kind of bring those two components together to make a win-win situation for people. And we started it as a nonprofit so that we could be sort of a voice or even a lighthouse in sort of the dark seas of e-commerce that can be uncertain and a bit terrifying at times, so that we could say, listen, we're looking out for you guys, and we'll show that to you guys by making sure that you guys are the ones that benefit from any referrals and the business that you do with our partners. And so that's why we formed it as a nonprofit. So kind of along the way, it's been a bit of a journey. I don't know how much you want me to get into here.
Hey, we got the time. So yeah, feel free. So how did you, so that's obviously a vision, right? What's kind of your expertise before you joined Empowery? Like, obviously it's a family. I personally know the background, but for those of people who don't know, like, who's all involved in it, the brain children, if you will, are family members behind all of this. It's a super cool concept, especially if you're in the e-commerce space, wanting to kind of connect with people who are experts in their field, not just as sellers, but as service providers. So how did they bring you into the mix on all this?
Well, interestingly, actually, this started with Steve Simonson and his partner, Evan Hackle. And they brought this in front of the Catalyst 88 group, which is Steve's mastermind group. And they wanted to find a way that they could put people together in a trustworthy way where people felt comfortable, like in a mastermind, where you could actually, talk to people, get advice from people, and know that you could trust the word of the people who are responding. And it's such a rare thing that people mostly go to masterminds for that, and they really don't have many other places to turn to. And so we do consider a portion of what we do mastermind, and we do provide mastermind level content. But when we were putting it together, then, Steve was thinking, how do we take this idea of a mastermind where you could go up to somebody and say, hey, I'm having this particular problem with my business. And someone like Steve could say, well, this is how I would handle it. I would start with this. I know a guy who does that service, and I could put you in touch. And if you use my name, maybe he'll give you a good deal. And that's kind of what we do. We put you in touch with the people that could solve a particular pain point, and we've already pre-negotiated on behalf of all of our members. So taking that small idea of a mastermind and a one-on-one conversation and really trying to put it on a really broad scale so that it is something that can help more than just, that one person in that one conversation was really the vision. And the Catalyst 88 group was kind of the founding members initially that said, this could work. This is something that we stand behind. And so that was sort of the founding area. And then Steve needed someone to run it. And so he contacted me. My background up to that point, I've done a lot of different things, but I had been running my own business for a while.
Sure.
And I had to, again, take something I wasn't super familiar with and learn fast.
No, absolutely. I think that's everyone in the e-commerce space, right? It's like, you're not an expert in it. You just kind of have to get your feet wet and jump in head first.
Absolutely.
Or feet first, depending on
Yeah, and what's crazy is a lot of people, they start out and they come into e-commerce, they learn the ABCs first, and then, they walk before they run. But interestingly, as I entered e-commerce through Empowery, I really had to learn more of the high level stuff, the mastermind level stuff first. And so it took me a while to kind of catch up to some of the initial phases, which is why I partnered with another of my brothers to sell a product so that I could kind of get some of the other basic information that, it's like being able to spell supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, but not being able to spell cat, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you got to start somewhere. So what was that experience like for you? Like, was this like a long time ago? Was this, still going on? Are you still selling?
Yeah, so I do still help one of my brothers. I mostly have done sort of the customer review areas and the customer contact and that kind of thing. And I do some of the behind the scenes for Seller Central and making sure that we have inventory and that all of the stuff with our 3PL is going well. So some logistics and things like that, which is so interesting to look at from the Empowery side of things and helping our members and just looking at it from like, okay, this is a voice on the other end of the phone or through email, and this seems like a reasonable approach. And then actually having to do that in practice, it's very interesting to see how different that can be sometimes.
I know it's certainly crazy. I mean, all the facets that you think about in concept, right? Like sourcing your products, finding all those different, finding your listing, finding a brand, finding all these different things that, where am I going to even sell? What marketplace do I want to put it into? All these concepts that everyone starting out on this journey has to go through. So you had to do it firsthand. That's super cool. I didn't know that about you. I mean, it makes sense going through, if you're going to talk the talk, you better walk the walk, right?
That's right.
So what's kind of the takeaways from that? What's your highs, your lows? If you don't mind sharing, like,
Sure.
Obviously you don't have to share numbers or anything like that, but what's kind of that takeaway from?
I would say my takeaways, I mean, often, I'm sure some people appreciate this and some people don't, but my takeaways most often have to do with mindset. So, with my previous business that I had run before Empowery, I don't want to be repetitive, and many people know this story because I've talked in a few things, but
go ahead.
I got to the point where I had to, it was a financial mess. And I absolutely just needed to make money. And so I started my service-based business here in Idaho. And I was able to run it and scale it and everything. But I got to the point where personal things started kind of affecting my life. And, I was separated from my ex-husband, and we were going through the process of divorce. There's just so many things that you don't realize are going to affect you. And that I sort of willfully decided would not. And that doesn't actually work, by the way, if you're curious. It did affect me, and it did affect my business. So all of that sort of started spilling over. And I failed at several things many times. And what I realized is, for a long time, I was punishing myself for those failures. And I even had crazy thoughts, like maybe I'm not the person who I actually thought that I was. But in the end, I was able to flip the script a little bit. And again, this is mindset for me. You have to decide that those are learning opportunities and that was necessary for you to move on to the next phase of your life. And it really was just almost serendipitous how it worked out that those events transpired. And then Steve needed somebody to run Empowery. And it was just such a match made in heaven, doing things that I had newly rediscovered as my why. Things that, I passionately believe in, being part of my everyday life, helping other people, being part of my everyday life, and, bringing that meaning to work with me every day. That it was just such a beautiful thing. And so in, kind of starting something new, as everyone knows, startups are so rocky. Oh, yeah. And Empowery is no exception to that. And so just having that recent history at that time of knowing, it's okay to fail, and that gives you what you need. That gives you the tools that you need to do better. And we've operated Empowery in that way, that we we try things out and we try to do the best for our members, and then we get feedback and we improve and improve and improve.
That's awesome. I mean, that's great to hear. And for everyone who's joining kind of a little bit late or got off the webinar, got a snack, came back, and they're like, hey, Ping Pong is talking again. Again, this is Crossover Commerce. My name is Ryan Cramer. I'm the host of this show where we go live with people in the e-commerce and Amazon space to kind of help level up their knowledge and kind of walk away with a new perspective on how to look at Amazon business or their own e-commerce business. I'm not a seller. Melissa was a seller, or is a seller still, but she's kind of sharing her tips and tricks of what she's come across. For all those who are international joining us, welcome on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, all the fun social media channels. Thanks for joining us. So Melissa, as a GM, you've probably gone through a lot, and as a seller, obviously, you have gone through lots of negotiation tactics, right? That's what we kind of the topic we wanted to touch on. As a business owner, as a person who started a service, as a person who's on Amazon space or e-commerce space, you're negotiating constantly.
Yes.
What's kind of your outlook in that capacity? Like when we were talking about this concept, you were like, I love negotiating with people.
Yeah.
love it. And that's not the first thing I always hear from people. They're like, God, this stinks, and like it's time consuming. It sucks up all my energy and time, and I want to do the fun stuff like sell. So like what about that mindset kind of makes you excited when it comes to negotiation?
Yeah, I actually love it for that reason. I love it because most people think that it's just it's intimidating, that it's confrontational. I just love doing something in a way that is not expected. So I did a decent job and was pretty familiar with negotiating for my service-based business, and I could turn a hard situation into a win a lot of the time. But I actually still struggled with the ability to really push for what I wanted, because I really like to help people, and that is somewhat of a hindrance in negotiating. But you're like, yeah, let's do what you want. And then you're like, now I'm working for free here. So I actually had to translate that much better. And it wasn't until I began with Empowery that I really finally saw the light. And I love talking about negotiations because people have those preconceptions that I think are very wrong. A lot of people think you have to bully people into giving you what you want, or that you have to just roll over. And there is a totally different way. When I started with Empowery, I realized I'm not just negotiating for me and my time. I am negotiating on behalf of all of these sellers. And if they could turn around with their, sales or whatever, and do a better job negotiating this as one seller, then I can on behalf of all of these sellers that I'm representing. I'm clearly doing something wrong. And so it became something that I was negotiating for, instead of having an opponent that I was negotiating against. And in that light, it became very clear that whoever I'm talking to, whoever I'm negotiating with, we are a team trying to work toward the mutual benefit for us and for whoever the ideal customer is. And that you can walk away from that situation having not made a deal, but still be friends and still work together in the future. All of these things can be just laying groundwork for a future potential that you just haven't reached yet. And that's such a different way to look at negotiation that actually fell in line with my personality and wanting to help people, that it was just like, the angels sang, and I was like, I can do this. And it's not intimidating at all, because I'm just making friends, and that's a whole different way of doing things.
Absolutely. Well, I mean that makes sense. Like, it's all mindset, right? It's how you perceive your negotiation and what you want to get out of it, right? Like, obviously, people can take that approach of bullying one into submission. I mean, it's that way in life, right? To get what you want out of a relationship, you can take the, hey, what's beneficial for you is beneficial for me, and then you can come out that regards, or you can say, hey, listen, this is what I want. I don't care what you need to get out of this. Take this or leave it, or I'll find someone else who gives me all the power. And in business, that can really elevate you, or they can really burn you. And it sounds like that's really propelled you.
Honestly, here's the thing. There can be situations where you can't accept anything less, because you're fighting for your members, or because of whatever situations. I'm bound with approvals from the board of directors and several different things for the nonprofit that I manage. So there's things that are acceptable and things that are not, but it really is the way that you go about it. If you come to somebody and say, this is what we're offering, you either accept it or I'll find somebody who does. that is intentionally putting someone on the defensive. And anytime you put them on the defensive, they just want to win that conversation. They're not really in the mood to chat anymore.
So when you come into contact with people like that and they're just stubborn, they're like, I need to win this conversation. What do you suggest to people that are like, I need to either give in or walk away? Like, what if they have no other option and they have to negotiate with this person? What do you suggest for people?
That's almost never true, though. Like, there's almost always an alternative. And I think that people really need to keep that in mind. This, today only deal, or this, one time only, or this, whatever. It's, for one thing, that's probably not the only person who can get you what you want. And for another thing, they might not even be willing to admit it at that moment, but this is a groundwork conversation that you could probably revisit in the future if you handle it correctly, even if they're the ones trying to come off strong on you. So in that situation, if you're the one coming off strong, you can say, I am limited in my options here. This is what I can do, or what I have to request from you. I understand if you're not able to meet that, and no hard feelings. Right. And if we are able to meet you at that point, then you can say, you can continue to negotiate the deals. But if you're the one being bullied and there's somebody who is just really coming after you, honestly, most of the time I would say walk away. Have an alternative option in your back pocket, because the way that somebody negotiates is also the way that they're going to do business with you. And if you want somebody who you're doing business with all the time to be bullying you and kind of setting the tone for every kind of interaction that you have, then, I guess that's all right. But I think most people don't really want to be pushed around on a regular basis. So if that's how they're negotiating with you, to me, that's a bit of a red flag.
Right. Because obviously if they win in this concept one time, what's to keep them from doing it again to you, or to take advantage of you in another capacity? So yeah, that's a great tip for sure. I know one of our Facebook watchers actually told me to ask you about the Empowery Women's Conference. So that's really cool. I'm familiar with it personally, obviously, and that seems like a lifetime ago, pre-COVID. We all talk about. Oh my gosh. So yeah, what's the women's conference that this Facebook user was asking about, or wants to kind of tell more information about?
Yeah, so the Empowery Women's Conference, it was such an amazing event. We hosted on Manhattan Beach in February of this year. And it was really a spectacular event. We had so many people who came, and they were just there. We set the tone immediately to be, let's not waste time trying to impress each other or prove that we belong here, or, all the stuff that usually takes up a little too much mind space when you're first at an event. Let's skip past that. Let's assume everybody belongs here, and that everybody has something interesting that they can teach you, and something they're interested in about you that you can teach them. And then let's just work on finding out what those things are. Let's get into that instead of wasting our time with, the other stuff that I think happens just as human nature at other events. And I think that really forged some bonds very early on at that event. It was an event to remember for sure.
That's awesome. So, was that the first event you guys did, or was that something that just kind of like stemmed as a brainchild of yours, or is that like what's in the future for you guys? And obviously now we're in COVID stage and not no longer pre-COVID. What's kind of the next steps for you guys as an organization, as a seller, as a person who's connecting people in this space?
So our first event was actually our Seattle Summit that we held in 2019 in Seattle. And it was also a really spectacular event. It was a mastermind level event. And our women's conference was more of an inclusive event for sellers of all levels and different types of sellers. So there was some wholesalers and some retail arbitrage people and people who sell on Shopify. So there was a lot of different types of people there. And so there really was a ton of things that people could learn. And we, my goal there was to get more women on the stage. And so we only had women speakers, though there were men and women alike at this conference. And I think what was a really positive thing was that some of these people had not been seen on stage before, at least in the e-commerce space. So people like Mayan Gordon, who is a TikTok expert, a LinkedIn expert, an influencer with, 2-point-something crazy million views and followers.
She's crazy. I love all of her content. She's all over LinkedIn if you guys don't follow her.
Yeah. And, it's impressive what can happen when you take the time to meet people and just talk to them for a few minutes without any preconceptions or any, specific goal of that conversation. And, I think it was really interesting to watch these conversations take place. And now to see, now it's October, all these bonds that people are so close. I mean, some of these women that I met or that met me or that met each other during this conference, we talk sometimes on like Marco Polo and like different apps, and we actually keep in touch more than just, hey, how's it going on Facebook Messenger, which that has never happened to me at another event before. So I just love it.
That's awesome, because obviously I personally feel that once you build up your community, your network of people, I think that's one of the most valuable assets you have in the space, in Amazon, in selling on e-commerce, or just being a service provider, because a lot of people run into the same issues. You're not the only one running into it. That's why it's always important. I would suggest joining groups like Empowery's, public group on Facebook. People are constantly throwing out, questions or comments, or like, hey, I personally ran into this problem XYZ. Has anyone else done this? Like, I'm kind of putting myself out there, and that's where the community is there to support themselves, whether it's connecting other people like you tried to do on a nonprofit level, but also other sellers can be like, man, like I did the same thing. Like when I was selling a few months ago, this is how I, solved that problem. Yeah. So it's really cool.
Yeah. One of the really great things about Empowery is that sometimes we have, other members who can jump in and say, oh my gosh, I had that same thing happen and here's what I did. And sometimes we can have our team members jump in and say, oh, by the way, good luck with this situation, but this is one of our solution providers for that particular pain point. And sometimes we have a couple different options depending on what the problem is and how that particular person prefers to solve that pain point. So there could be a couple different options depending on what they're looking for. And sometimes that's what you need. You just need the next step to go after, because you get into this problem and it just feels like there's a wrench thrown in the works and you're like, now what? And you don't have the next step forward. And so sometimes just having someone say, hey, here's a link to these people. And then maybe you talk to those people, but they're not the right solution, but they gave you an idea for the next person you could contact, or they gave you a name. And that's how you keep going down, the path to solve the problem.
Right. Obviously, you're hopefully finding people that will help you in that problem or solution, but having those people that you can always rely on, definitely a huge community and plus to have. What's kind of your most exciting thing that you like to tell Amazon sellers? Like what's your key takeaway? Like if you had to tell somebody who's like, I don't know if I want to get into the space, like what's something that your go-to like convincing statement, if you will?
I would say, if it's someone who's saying, I don't know if I should get into this space, look, it really has to do with your pain threshold and your risk aversion level, really. If you are very risk averse, I don't know that it's for you, but for the people who are saying like, it's too late, it's, you can't get into it without a huge amount of money, and it's just too late for people who aren't in the game yet. I think that's nonsense. If you think about how old Amazon is and like how old the space is and how rapidly it's changing. This is a baby. It's a baby that's just growing up. It's a tiny toddler just taking its first steps. And that's why there's so many changes. So, nobody, I think, has completely mastered it because it's such a evolutionary kind of a thing. It keeps evolving and it will keep evolving. So I think anyone who is struggling with whether it's too late to get into this or whether they started too late, I just think that you don't need to pay attention to anybody who's saying that. It's just in its infancy right now. For
sure. What does Empowery help people outside of just Amazon? Is it more just e-commerce, like in general?
Yeah, we definitely help anybody in e-commerce. We do have some people who they sell on Amazon, but they also sell on Shopify. So we do have resources that help you like boost your YouTube channel or help you with your SEO so that you can be found outside of Amazon. And then we have, sort of your regular Amazon. I'm so sorry.
It's okay. I've been putting children and dogs in the background. Hey, no worries. I know everyone at home is thinking the same thing. It's not a big deal. It's all good.
Various offense at the UPS man. Anyway,
more Amazon packages being delivered, I'm assuming.
That's right. No, but we have a lot of resources that are particular to Amazon because there's so many people that are in that space, or like that was their foundation and then they moved on. So we have people who help with sponsored products and stuff, but we also have, a resource that helps you with your Facebook ads. So that could be beneficial whether you do Amazon or Shopify or other e-commerce sites like Walmart and stuff. We also have a resource that helps you get into Costco, which is a very rare and awesome thing that not a lot of people have an in for. That's part of the power of the network that we have put in place.
That's awesome. So what's the thing that you're learning about right now that's exciting you the most about like the community or just like e-commerce and Amazon in general?
Oh man, that's tough. For me, like I really love psychology. I love human behavior. It's been interesting for me to see kind of the trends that have shifted in buying patterns with buyers purchasing stuff from Amazon. And so, I've kind of been looking at that and seeing some of the wacky things that have been going on. It's very bizarre. And then kind of I've seen a little bit of normalizing with certain products, but a total wackadoo response in other products. So I actually like that. I like taking psychology and applying it to buying patterns and also marketing. So for me, like I've been focusing on our, Kartra area, and I've been very excited about our member portal that we put together for our members, which is a fairly recent thing, but is a very much needed area for our members and our partners to kind of connect and talk to each other, so that members can do research on the partner and then reach out to that partner. And they also have a place that has all the content that we've created for our members. That was not something that we had before. So for me, taking, sort of the lessons learned on social media and some of the other platforms that we've used and applying those to our own little portal for Empowery members, that's been my main focus for the past little while.
That's awesome. A couple of things that also stuck out with me. You as trying to go through everything with negotiating and walking through businesses. Did you have to source your product from a different country?
That actually was something that my brother handled, that end of things.
Okay. So when you were with him, or what would he say, I guess in this instance, since he's not with us to join, what kind of negotiation happened there? Like if someone hasn't done it yet before they're at the beginning stages of like their seller journey, or they're looking to jump into a new supplier or new warehousing, space or a VA overseas or anything like that, how do you go about, or what's your kind of tips to share with people in regards of negotiating on those kinds of behalfs?
Yeah. As with most things, I think it's important to remember mindset at the beginning. And this is not something where I'm saying like, okay, go talk to the mirror and say, I believe in you. I believe in you. This is something that you have to put yourself in the frame of mind where you remember that just last year, before COVID and all of this stuff happened, there's all the tariffs and stuff that were going on. So it was freaking out the manufacturers and the factories in China. And then they have COVID and they have to shut everything down. And, that's a huge blow to them. So I think that it's important to get your own self into that mindset before you contact somebody. And instead of saying like, I'm a brand new seller and I just want to see what you'll allow me to do, you really need to say, here's what I need. Are you able to meet my needs? And if not, is it something that you can use, the amazing system that China has for daisy chaining to kind of help me find that resource for the button or the zipper that I need for that, or, things like that. So mainly what I want to get across to people is they need you. And when they are talking to you, it's going to come across as, you should be so lucky as for us to give you such a low MOQ. But they need you. And so you just need to tell them what you need. And there's a lot of other things. I could point you to 3 or 4 of Steve's podcasts and webinars that he did about this particular topic that says, make sure that all of the specs that you have are exactly in line, because if there's anything that you have not specified on your blueprints or your specs, they will change it. Make sure you're doing inspections. When you're having that initial conversation, what are they covering the product? Is there some insurance involved? Are you paying ahead of time? Say no, please say no.
Exactly.
What kind of arrangements do you have? And be, rest assured that you have more power in that situation than you think, because they really do need you. So you can ask for, a longer term for your payments and stuff than you would feel comfortable with initially. Just give it a couple goes and you'll get there.
Exactly. What's the one thing that still scares you about selling online?
It's just the uncertainty. I mean, everything could change in an instant. I think you really have to diversify and make sure that you're not putting all your eggs in one basket, because there will come a time when something changes and it just ruins your whole day, man. They're going to cancel Easter again, or you're going to have a huge amount of inventory for a particular thing, and that event gets canceled because of COVID or something totally unforeseen, and then you have this huge inventory and you get a $10,000 invoice from Amazon because you were so prepared and did everything right. So it means making sure that you have some backups, making sure that you're selling your product on Shopify, that you have some other avenues that you're using, that you try to get your stuff on Walmart and some of the other areas, so that you're not just completely caught off guard if something goes wrong with Amazon. And ideally you have more than one product so that can kind of help you bear the burden a little bit.
Sure. What does Empowery have a lot of international sellers that join the community, or is it more focused just in the United States, which is where obviously we're located?
It's definitely international. I mean, we have partners and members both in all kinds of countries. We have Australia, we have China, we have Serbia, we have the UK, Ireland, we have South Africa. We have, and Canada. We have partners in a lot of different places, and our membership we have in many different countries as well.
That's awesome. So it's truly an international, obviously, business, but you guys are connected all around the world with other entities and service providers. I'll kind of like ask my own little questions. What's the one thing that you would guess what would happen in the e-commerce space in the next year or so? Like, what's your bold prediction? Obviously you're not tied to Amazon in any way. What's kind of your bold prediction? How you think like the audience will react, how sellers will react? What's kind of your key insight, if you will?
Just actually looking at data and some of the weird buying patterns and stuff. It makes me leery to make any kind of prediction, because then we'll get like killer bees that wipe out a continent or something. So
God, please don't let that happen. No, I'm just kidding.
I don't know if I want to make a bold prediction, but I will say that,
where do you see it going? Yeah, where do you see it going? Like, obviously, this is your opinion. Like,
yeah, there's
I'm not holding you. No one here is holding you to it. So, where do you see it going?
Different areas of e-commerce and your own business and your particular product you can kind of use news and the goings on in the world as your small short-term future fortune teller, right? If you're paying attention to what's going on and the airports and everything start opening up, it's a good bet that the product that you've had on the back burner and you pulled out of Amazon FBA, that might be a good time to start promoting that one again if everybody's starting to get back into travel. There's things that you can kind of predict safely a little bit, and just make sure that you're using caution. There's so much uncertainty right now that I would say your best bet is to be aware of your surroundings, and that means like worldwide right now. And then also pay close attention to e-commerce news. All the changes that are being made by Amazon. There's, some of our partners do an excellent job of staying up to date on all of the news and all of the exact particular changes down to the line item that Amazon is making, like, Feedback Whiz and some of those other guys. So if you check out blogs and stay up to date with that, you actually will be able to make your own bold predictions. How about that?
No, for sure. No, there's obviously no like fortune telling. I don't think anyone predicted this to happen in the day and age that we're doing. But I think that's also a really cool thing that a lot of people can pivot, grow on e-commerce still, and then supplement that maybe loss that they have in either a brick and mortar store or in a different business that they were doing before COVID-19 happened. And then now they've pivoted to either selling on Amazon for the first time or, growing their business 3-4 times or 4x. That's really cool. Those are great like tips. Melissa, where can people like learn more about you, your team? Obviously, like Steve, you said he's been in the game a long time. I know Steve. How can they get these kinds of tips and ask those kinds of questions for you guys? Directly.
You can go to empowery.com/contact if you wanted to reach out to us directly. You could call our line. It's 855, the letter M, Power U. So M, Power U. And you can speak to one of the team at that time. And then you could also go to our Facebook groups and stuff. And Steve is constantly doing stuff. He's usually sharing that into the Empowery group. And if he doesn't, I usually do. So there's a lot of resources, most of which are free. And then if you are a member, then you should definitely take advantage of your ability to log into that member portal, because things that other people don't get access to, you do.
Right. And obviously there's us at PingPong are members of this co-op. So we're there helping people, assist in those questions that they might have about international payments or cross-border payments, international fees,
Absolutely.
and things like that. So we are happy to obviously be a part of that. And it's super exciting to have you on today. Again, for everyone who's on LinkedIn, on YouTube, Facebook Live, thanks for joining us today. I personally don't have any, I have so many questions. I could take up an entire day, but obviously consume this, think about it, rewatch it on all of our social channels. If you have questions, check out Melissa and team at empowery.com. Thank you so much, Melissa. It's been a pleasure again, as always, talking with you today. Everyone, this is Crossover Commerce. I'm Ryan Cramer, your host. Join us again. I want to say tomorrow, possibly, or even early next week. I'll be joining again with other experts in the e-commerce and Amazon space. Thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you all soon. Thanks again.